All right, everyone. We do want to show you a live look right now. West Palm Beach, Florida. We do have President Trump, Air Force One, just landing. And boy, President Trump broke some news while he was aboard Air Force One. I want to show this to you because it has to do with the incarcerated former Representative George Santos. We are learning now, President Trump putting this out on Truth Social, that he has freed George Santos from federal prison. Take a look at this Truth Social saying George Santos was somewhat of a rogue, but there are many rogues throughout our country that aren't forced to serve 7 years in prison. I started to think about George when the subject of Democrat Senator Richard Dudnang Dick Blumenthal came up again. As everyone remembers, Dudnang stated for almost 20 years that he was a proud Vietnam veteran, having endured the worst of the war, watching the wounded and dead as he raced up the hills and down the valleys, blood streaming from his face. He was a great hero. He would leak to all, and all would listen. And then it happened. He was a complete and total fraud. He never went to Vietnam. He never saw Vietnam. He never experienced the battles there or anywhere else. His war hero status and even minimal service in our military was totally and completely made up. This is far worse than what George Santos did, and at least Santos had the courage, conviction, and intelligence to always vote Republican. George has been in solitary confinement for long stretches of time and by all accounts has been horribly mistreated. Therefore, I just signed a commutation releasing George Santos from prison immediately. Good luck, George, and have a great life. It ended there. So I just want to give you a little breakdown of George Santos, and he was sentenced to 87 months in prison. That was more than 7 years back on April 25th of this year after pleading guilty to federal fraud charges. He reported to the Federal Correctional Institution in New Jersey back on July 25th, 2025, to begin his sentence. And then just months later, getting the news now that President Trump has freed him. And wow, what a moment here on this Friday edition of Live Now from Fox. Again, this is just some video that we had here in our system. But again, President Trump commutes George Santos' prison sentence, releasing him from over 7 years that he would have to serve on federal charges. He reported back on July 25th of this year after he was sentenced back on April 25th of this year after pleading guilty to federal fraud charges. So that is the big news here of this afternoon. Live look right now, Air Force One. We will see President Trump get down the steps in just moments, and we'll see if he speaks to the media after this big news story on this Friday evening, as President Trump just moments away from getting down the steps of Air Force One in West Palm Beach and then heading over to Mar-a-Lago. We will take a 2-minute break on Live Now from Fox. We will be keeping an eye on the movements there in Florida for the president on this busy news Friday afternoon. We'll be back with